Welcome everyone to another episode of Global Insights in Professional Security. I'm your host, Michael Gips. The show is hosted by Group 337 and Inside Access Control, led by Lee Odess, and I'm grateful to be part of his podcast network. As a reminder, this program looks at big themes in security, vis-a-vis large societal trends, industries, and phenomena, such as digital transformation, law, criminal justice, and disinformation. Today, we're going to tackle the field of security research. Research is one of the cornerstones of any viable profession, and I'd say that our guest is a cornerstone of the field of security research. He's the head of Perpetuity Group and the originator of the OSPA Awards, and the host of an extremely popular webinar series. I'm, of course, talking about Professor Martin Gill. Welcome, Martin.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
On excellent form. Thank you very much indeed for the invitation.
My pleasure. So I feel like I'm getting to turn the tables here, being in the questioner's chair. How does it feel to be on the other side?
Of course, I prefer to ask the questions, and I've got used to this through the webinars. That said, I know I've done it quite a few times. So, of course, I don't know what you're going to ask me. That's just the one question.
Well, yeah, these are things that you should know, but I have some pretty provocative questions for you. And so you like to pose provocative questions to your webinars. So I'm going to start one in like manner. Is security research an oxymoron like jumbo shrimp or original copy?
Well, here's the point. Any field of activity that is looking to generate evidence in order to move itself onto the next stage, quite apart from whether you call it a stepping stone to a profession or not, if it wants to progress, it is difficult to see how it can meaningfully do that. Indeed, I would argue it would be impossible without a recognized body of knowledge to work from. It's that recognized body of knowledge based on evidence that separates it out as a distinct area and a distinct field of activity. So perhaps I could answer your question this way. It is impossible to conceive of developing without the research, good research that's undertaken in the right way. It's a prerequisite for progress. It's a prerequisite for a stepping stone to practice, and it's a prerequisite for any industry that takes itself seriously.
Well, that's an excellent answer. So the next question flows from that, which is, what is the state of security research today? Is it viable? Is it respected? And how do we make it more so if it is?
Well, I think all research that's done well is respected. The question is it making a difference? I think that's probably the bigger issue. I think that it's certainly getting better. There are more studies these days. And of course, there's those studies that are done within the security world by security people, and those in other areas that overlap the world of security. And those worlds increasingly draw upon security-related research. There's a very prestigious journal, the Security Journal, that's been around for a long time. So I think it's getting better. I think the problem is the security world doesn't embrace it, perhaps, in a way, and that's because it hasn't grown up based on understanding the value of it. Security as a body of knowledge is not something that everyone does from a young age and builds up to it. And of course, you can be at the top of the security world in the most senior positions without having held a security position in any sort of commercial sector. And that's the reality of it. So my sense is definitely getting better, definitely getting more of it. Still a long way to go. Okay.
And you mentioned the Security Journal, which you're a part of, and your own company, Perpetuity Group, does research, a lot of it. And you're also, at least the last time I checked, you were involved with the ASSIS Foundation Research Committee, which is another avenue. So do all roads lead to Martin Gill? Or are there other places that do security research? I know there's a Journal of Homeland Security, things like that, but I don't know what the uptake is. Where, and you do great work, but where is there something that you're not involved in?
Well, I'm not involved myself in research done by the ASS Foundation. I sit on the research committee and I'm a trustee. I'm very pleased to be associated with the ASIS Foundation. I think it's a great organisation that's doing a lot of good research, and indeed we've commissioned a certain Mr. Gips to do some work, which has been very well received. So I'm very proud of that. And the Security Journal too. I'm merely the editor. So I also edit the Handbook of Security, which is a collection of leading researchers and scholars around the world writing about their subject matter. But there's so much work out there, and that's the encouraging sign from different countries, from different angles. One of the dynamics of security, which is both its strength and its weakness, is its so varied activities. And those, for example, working as, say, nuclear security or food security or retail security may have very little relationship to one another in their professional lives, and to a large extent may draw off slightly different bodies of knowledge, even though certain elements are the same. But their paths may never cross, but for associations which bring people together. So I think that's another sort of good reality which we've yet to properly engage fully with.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because I know the Loss Prevention Research Council does a lot of research. And if you're not in loss prevention or retail, you probably don't know anything about it. And there are other groups like that. So, and you're absolutely right about being part of a larger network where, like ASIS or the Security Institute, where those things cross over. Is there, are there projects, either your own or others that you know about or that you've helped commission, that you're particularly excited to see the results of?
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned the ASSIS Foundation. So later in the year, the foundation will be publishing a research on the state of the security industry. And I think we look forward to that with great interest. My own research, I'm involved with the IFPO in a survey we're doing of security officers in 9 different countries. For the first time, getting the views of security officers about their work and how it's perceived, what they think about their colleagues, and how competent they are at what they do. So I think that's going to be another important study. We've also got another study going on where we're looking at the impact of COVID on the security sector, and Perpetuity Research will be publishing that around September time. So just 3 examples of 3 different projects from 3 different sources that I think will have a major impact, and indeed should be essential reference points, I think.
No, that's great. So the state of the security industry, ASIS did one of those. I know because I was involved in it in 2012 and another one in 2014. Is it going to be follow-on of that, or what questions is it going to address?
Yeah, but to some extent, Mike, it's going to be a follow-on with that. It's certainly drawing parallels with other studies that have been done. It's tricky to get people to respond at this time, but I think the researcher Kevin's done a good job, and look forward to seeing the report. It's definitely worth looking out for. It will both develop on what's gone before, but develop some new themes too.
That's great. It's exciting to hear that we're firing on a lot of different cylinders in the security research arena. Where do you think the biggest gaps are in security research? Are there areas, are there big holes that we really haven't addressed, or critical issues that really we should, get involved in? I know you're helping spearhead for ASIS research and digital transformation, so that's one key area. When you mentioned the security officers, that's probably, I would imagine, that's an under-tapped resource, and probably less research there than we'd want. Are there any other areas where we need to fill some gaping holes?
You name any area of security, and I will then say it's a research gap. I don't think there's any area, any aspect that doesn't merit more research in some way. It's a massive subject area, and given the breadth, the depth of research is really quite shallow. So there's plenty of scope in every area. Some areas have attracted more attention than others. I think loss prevention actually is one of those where there's been a bit more research, partly because you've got this thing called shrinkage rate. How much is an organization losing? And when you can put it in those terms, the focus on security loss becomes greater. You can see a loss, and so you can see a focus. So I think that's been one of the advantages which has driven interest in that area. But that said, there's still a lot more we can do in the world of loss prevention.
Oh, that's really interesting. I was going to tease you and say, is there any more that we could do on blockchain and security? But I did blockchain
You did.
research, yeah, for the and that was the first one in a continuing series of digital transformation projects. I'm looking forward to the other ones. When are the next ones coming out?
Well, there's quite a few that are going to come out this year on very different aspects of security, and there'll be a lot more coming up as well, Mike, as we begin to move forward. One thing I think the ASIS Foundation has done is put together a program of research projects that are really beginning to have an impact on a very diverse range of security topics. So as you say, we've done blockchain. You yourself did some work on how different organizations have responded to the crisis. We've also done, through the foundation, have done some work on the role of business continuity and how that's going to pan out. That's ongoing. We've got other research that's looked on more the technology side. So a whole range of projects there, both that have been done and are being done, that are up to date and involve researchers from increasingly around the globe and differently from different parts of the security sector.
Yeah, I commend ASIS Foundation and you and the rest of the team for using, for developing the foundation as a sort of a hotbed of research and really using the funding not only for worthwhile causes such as scholarships for security students, but to advance the state of security research. Because as you say, if you look at an area close enough, and you don't even have to look that close, there are holes. So I think it's exciting what the foundation is doing.
I do too. And I think one of the other things, both that we've done in perpetuity research and is definitely being done in the foundation, is to try and evolve projects that have a direct impact on informing practice. So another one, just to give an example, coming out of the foundation, is a study that's been done on social media and how that's being used. And once again, if I may turn back to research that I'm doing in perpetuity research, we've also been looking at the way that law enforcement are using social media. Completely different projects, completely unrelated, but in their different ways are examples of what's being done to inform practice. A lot of research going on in Australia that is going well. And one of my colleagues, Dave Brooks, who's on the foundation, is an active researcher in Australia. There's a lot of research going on there. And increasingly, we're seeing parts of the world that haven't been involved in research suddenly becoming more active. And that's a wholly good sign. Certainly Africa is a hotbed. In the Handbook of Security I was telling you about, we've got a chapter there from Africa. And African academics are getting more involved, particularly terrorism studies, but a whole range of other work too. So watch this space. Watch this space. I think the key is, though, Mike, that what we've got to do is, it's one thing to produce good research. It's quite another for that to have an impact with practitioners if we don't get to practitioners to read it. And I think one of the things we've been weak at doing, in fact, rather interestingly, one of my colleagues on the foundation, Joe Masaccio, said to me that when we send out the reports, we don't make it clear that they've all got an executive summary. And I thought, goodness, as a researcher, I took it as obvious, and it's not obvious. And what an excellent point. We now need to make the point that you don't have to read a 100-page report. You can read one page and get a glimpse of what the key findings are. And therein are some of the things we're trying to think about how we can relate theory to practice in the most meaningful way.
Well, that's a really good point, because we were talking about the blockchain research, and one of the people I interviewed for that study is a very well-known cybersecurity blogger, researcher. And when it came out, it's a 50-page document, and there's a cost attached to it, which is not insignificant. And I sent this person the finished product, and he said, this is really good, except it's a shame it's going to founder, because it costs money and no one's going to read it. It's going to be hidden. I said, well, there's the executive summary, and it really hits the high points. So I think that was, a real value add there, because that a lot of the detail in this research is maybe beyond somebody's interest level, but the free executive summaries that the foundation provides really get to the gist of it in an efficient way that provides really the lion's share of the information you need. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, and to be fair, quite a lot of the government publications reports done around the world. A lot of governments do research. I mean, certainly in the United States, in Canada, UK, Australia, and a lot of those reports also have executive summaries. I mean, one of the points, obviously, it's good for me to talk about the foundation. It's good for me to talk about the research I do. It's good for me to talk about the Security Journal and the Handbook of Security. But I just want to make the point that there is research around the world that's emanating from a whole range of sources now. And encouragingly, there's a lot to draw on from different parts of the world, and there's a lot of good stuff out there. And we just need to make sure we harness it and use it to engage with practice. And so academic articles have an abstract, reports generally have an executive summary, and we need to get more awareness of those and get them into the right hands. If we can do that, we're beginning to make it a lot more useful and get people to engage more.
Great insight. Now I want to switch gears a little bit, something maybe not closer to your heart, but maybe a little more fun and lighthearted. You have a very popular series of webinars hosted by the OSPAs, and you've done more than 100 of them, I believe, and I'm a big fan of them. You get really good presenters or panelists, and there's a lot of action and activity in the chat box. Sometimes there's more activity there going on, like debates going on. So it's really interesting, and you have to use, you have to listen and read, and there's a lot of things going on at once, and you ask very direct questions. Do you have a favorite? Do any of them stand out because of the topic or the discussion or the participants or the concurrent chat box activity?
Well, we've done 112 so far, so 113th on Tuesday. So we've been very active. I think the thing about the thought leadership webinars, and they're every Tuesday and Thursday, is that, as you say, we choose a different topic. It's 45 minutes. We get 3 panelists at least, and we engage with it. And so they've all fascinated me. I mean, I'm an enthusiast by nature. I'm genuinely interested in what the panelists have got to say, and I'm generally interested in the debate. So it's an easy one for me, and I really enjoy it. I look forward to them, actually, really enjoy it. If I had to pick out one, I think the one that I might pick out would be, rather curiously, the interview we did with offenders. We did 2 webinars where we interviewed offenders, and one of the great things about being a criminologist is that in my life I've been able to interview offenders, a lot in prison, sometimes before or after they've been to prison. I've been out with them afterwards, and we've walked around the places they've committed crime. I'm hired by some retailers in the UK to go shoplifting from them. So we go and steal, and then we give the goods back and explain how we did it. So offender perspective has been an important part of my learning about security. And I would still say, of all the things I've done, learning about security, the best insights I've gained has been from working with offenders, because they point out the security weaknesses, and they're not there to say how great it all is and how wonderful it is. And they offer really insightful critiques if you listen to what they say. And the audience reaction to them has been outstanding. So I'm sure we'll get them back in the future. And but I think that perspective has been good. And we've got one coming up in a couple of weeks' time, where we're interviewing 2 victims who were duped into parting from a lot of money with fraudsters. And one's a GP and one's a city banker. So these are bright people, right, who are duped into transferring money. How could that be? And they're going to talk about their experiences. So I think that'll be good. But generally speaking, we have 3 experts. You've been on the mic, and I think we've got good people. We've got a good methodology, and we stick to the points. We're quite sort of focused. And so they've all, with no exaggeration, I think every single one I've learnt from, and I've enjoyed being part of.
And you get a lot of questions, and you do a good job sorting through them and quickly getting a lot of them in. And also asking the pointed questions. I like when people when when you get back to people, when you've asked them the question and they kind of extemporize or don't really answer the question. So you either, if you see they're not comfortable with it, you just say, okay, how about you? And then you rephrase the question the way you want it answered. It's like, do a very good job balancing that. I like that, to get to the point and move through a lot of questions and not have the show drag.
Well, exactly. And I think that's the key point about a chair. What I want from a chair, I've chaired lots of conferences and I've chaired lots of meetings, of course, and I've chaired a lot of these webinars, 112. And I think one of the things that I want from a chair is hold it together, and I say to the panel, look, this is going to be fast, it's going to be direct. If you start making speeches, I'm going to cut you off. You're there to answer questions. And if you don't answer questions, I'm going to intervene. So they know the rules, okay? And I think no one's ever come back to me and not said fair enough. So they might have thought, I wish you hadn't done that. But I mean, that's the rules we have. That's the game we play. And I think people like it. I think people join because they know they're going to get their say. I mean, if one of the other panelists goes on too much, I'm going to stop them and give everyone a fair shot. And I mean, sometimes I ask a question, some people say, in fact, it happened this week. I asked a question, someone said, look, I haven't got a clue about the answer. I just don't know. I said, oh, wait a minute, let me apply the question to you. You're in a commercial environment. How would you react if this came to you as a commercial issue? He goes, well, I can answer that. And so, there's ways in which we can engage people. My job's not to embarrass them or to make them feel uncomfortable, but to make the most for the audience. And also, I also feel a loyalty to the topic. Let's do justice to this topic. And we've only got 45 minutes. We've got to be quick. So that's what we do. And so far, so good. We've got to 112, and our plan is to keep going.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. How long can you go? Is there, because you started because of COVID. COVID hopefully is going to end at some time, but I don't think anyone wants your webinar to end, your webinar series to end. So is there a, we'll do this for another year. We'll do this till this topics run out, do it till I get bored. Or
well, the topics will never run out.
Yeah,
the topics will never run out.
And you'll probably never get bored. Yeah.
But you wrote to me this week and suggested a topic, of course, and we'll never ever run out of topics. I'm not worried about that. It's a good point. The answer to your question is I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm not worried. I mean, if we've got to change to a different time or a different number, we could do that. I mean, at the moment, there's still sufficient interest, still a lot of interest, I have to say, because people who can't watch it live can watch it afterwards. We put a recording on the website, free of charge to attend, free of charge to watch. So it's there in perpetuity for people. So, and a lot of people watch it afterwards from around the world. In fact, oddly enough, Mike, this very week, I've had a lady from Australia write to me to say, what a great series, but they go out too late in Australia. We always have to watch a recording. Could we watch it live by you be doing it later? And I said, well, I've got a problem there because if I do it later, I'm going to miss America. So it's all live on the website, and we do try and vary it for different parts of the world. The answer to your question, we're going to go on indefinitely. We may have to vary it, but no plans to give it up yet.
Great. So if I were to summarize this this podcast, with one sentence, it would be: use the research, security research that's out there, take advantage of it. Is there anything you'd add to that? You leave your guests with 20 seconds. 20 seconds, sum up everything. So I'm giving you 20 seconds to sum up everything.
Well, the thing we haven't spoken about is the Outstanding Security Performance Awards. And
yes,
the
please.
OSPAs are really, really important to me, Mike, because they're about recognizing outstanding performance in security through an ethical, level playing field. Now, people have got a jaundiced view of award schemes. And what we've tried to do with the Outstanding Security Performance Awards, OSPAs in different countries, and the US OSPAs is thriving, is have a level playing field to recognize that there is outstanding performance, and we need to identify who the good companies, the good individuals, the good teams, the good initiatives, the good products, and that's what the OSPAs is about. So just to put it in a nutshell, that's a bigger part of my issue, is I want to inform good practice. The research is about that. The webinars are about that. The Handbook of Security is about that. The Security Journal is about that. And the OSPAs are definitely about that. And we've just launched the Cyber OSPAs for the Cyber OSPA world. And they're all very, very important to me.
I was talking to a Canadian friend of mine, and you don't have a Canadian OSPAs yet. Is that right?
No, we're working on it. We're working on it.
Okay, you're one guy and you're building a worldwide, an OSPA. So I know you have probably a dozen countries so far, which is, you're doing a great job. And I'm sure other countries are looking forward to getting on board too. So
we're about to announce 3 more, Mike. Stand by. Three more.
Oh, you're not going to break the news here?
Not here. No.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So thank you, Martin. This has been great. Thank you for your time. I know you're a very busy person, and the audience appreciates hearing from you.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.